Hey guys, hey guys, what is going on? My name is James, and welcome to the UFC news. We're going to be using UFC 2010 gameplay this time because I was just mucking around on that, and turns out that it was two good fights for me. Um, our first news report is since losing about Chad Mendes and Clay Guida. Since losing to UFC featherweight champion Jose Aldo in January of 2012, Chad Mendes has torn through three straight competitors trying to get back in contention. He's defeated Cody McKenzie, Yadoz, Yotin Meza, and Darren Elkins in succession, and may be returning to action this August to continue his run. That's the word from UFC Fuel. That's the word from Fuel TV's UFC Tonight program on Tuesday night, where it was reported that the UFC is looking at rebooking Mendes versus Clay Guida at UFC 164 in Milwaukee. Yeah, the two were supposed to fight on a Fox at to fight at UFC on Fox 7 last month, but an injury to Guida moved Elkins into that slot. Guida made his debut in the featherweight division in January, taking a highly contested decision against Hatsu Hioki. UFC 164 takes place on August the 31st, though it has no headliner yet tapped for the pay-per-view event. This looks to be a good fight. I like Clay. I hated Clay Guida in his last fight. And I think that Chad Mendes is an absolute brilliant fighter. Clay Guida usually does put on great performances, but you know, hopefully Chad Mendes will beat Clay Guida because Mendes. I want to see Mendes Aldo too. So yeah, that's all I got to say about that. So with Hernan Barrero out with next month's UFC 161 event due to a torn ligament in his foot. I mentioned this in my last video. The UFC has prompted the light heavyweight bout between Rashad Evans and Dan Henderson to the Winepeg card's main event. The organization announced the switch on Tuesday afternoon. Both Henderson and Evans are entering the main event off of losses. Henderson to Lyoto Machida by split decision in February, which snapped a significant winning streak to the final Strikeforce light heavyweight champ, and Evans to Antonio Ruggiero Nogueira in his second straight loss at UFC 156. The event takes place in the NTS Center on June 15th, the UFC's first ever event in Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada. It's good. Hendo going into the main event. Once again, I think that's like his fourth or third main event in the UFC. You know, I like Henderson. Don't mind Rashad. He can get a bit cocky at times, but I think they should have put the Shogun Hua versus Antonio Ruggiero Nogueira on the main event, as that one kind of is like a number one contender, like the number one contender brackets, kind of like you got the Gustafsson, Machida, and then two. I reckon that was kind of a fight for that, but it seems like they might be going with Evans and Henderson, as they've kind of draw more pay-per-view. They probably will draw more pay-per-view buys. So, I'm not complaining. It's still going to see the fights, and we're going to see Roy Nelson on the card, so as well. So I'm not really going to complain. So Josh Barnett is on his way back to the UFC, as MMAJunkie.com reports that he's signed a multi-fight contract with the organisation. Barnett has been one of the most well-known holdout from the Strikeforce roster when it was absorbed by the UFC, and for a time it seemed like as if both sides would not come to a deal, but they've now come to an agreement, and Barnett will make his UFC return later this year. He's a former champion in the organisation, having captured the title back in 2002 with a win over Randy Couture. However, he was stripped of the belt and released from the organisation. He spent the next several years in Japan before joining Affliction, sorry I can't pronounce it, in 2008. He won 2 fights under the banner before essentially ending their run, where he failed another drugs test, cancelling his bout with Fedor Emelianenko, and in turn Affliction's third event. Following that name's Demis, Barnett eventually made his way to the Strikeforce for the Heavyweight World Grand Prix. He made it to the finals before suffering a decision loss to Daniel Cormier, and then he bounced back with a win over Nandor Guillermino on the final Strikeforce card. He's headed back to where he first gained fame and more than 11 years later. So, we're going to see Josh Barnett back into the UFC. He originally beat Randy Couture back in 2002, as the news article mentioned. If Josh Barnett don't take any drugs, if he stays at a healthy base, I reckon he could be a contender for the heavyweight division. But you've got so many people at the minute coming through in the heavyweight division that I think it's too quick to say that he's definitely going to be a contender. We lost to Daniel Cormier. Maybe we could see a rematch between them two, because I know Cormier wants to fight again this year. So, hopefully we could see a Barnett Cormier too. That'd be quite a good fight. So anyways, we're going to come to the end of this video. This has been the end of the UFC news. Don't forget to subscribe, like, comment. Also comment what you think on the news stories this week. Today. Hope you guys have enjoyed this.